So what we're going to be going over today, we're really going to be focusing on kind of where's conversational AI going within Microsoft and where we're focused. And again, I'm Dwayne Robinson, I'm a principal program manager. We have Gary Pretty on as well. Gary will be helping us with questions and such. But today we're really going to be focused in on basically kind of where are we and where are we headed. So in the world of conversational AI and Microsoft, we really, before I talk about where we're headed, I always like to look back to say, where did we come from and kind of where are we on this journey? Because it's important to understand that like many of our customers jumped into conversational AI in different places, and depending on where you came, you might get different direction, right? So I think it's good to kind of think about where these things are. So if we start in the past, Microsoft really started in Microsoft Research in the past when conversational AI and building like chatbot type of scenarios and natural language understanding was a domain of like specialized vendors. You had to have a specialized vendor and you had to outsource that with data scientists to be able to get these specialized systems put together for you. The whole point of our research project was to determine, could we take this next step? And that next step being, could we actually make it possible for in-house developers to be able to do it themselves without having to have these specialized vendors and things? Not that you wouldn't use a partner, but think of it that partners across the board could do this. It wasn't just like very niche type of companies that were able to do this. So that's where you saw the manifestation, and what we released coming out of research was the Bot Framework SDK, or the software development kit for Bot Framework, as well as the Azure Bot service. And that was really targeted at in-house developers, pro code developers, and we started in Visual Studio and an SDK. We moved to adding capabilities like context switching within a dialogue, where you could be talking about one thing and just switch in the middle of the conversation to something else, and the conversational stack being able to handle that. And that's where you saw like Composer and our adaptive dialogue stack come to life, and such. But since then, we've actually really started looking at this and saying, we actually have to modernize. We have to go further than this. And what we saw is that while developers are really great at building solutions, we really need to take it further, right? We need to be able to go further with this and be able to say, how can we make it where both the business and the developers can work together? Because we know that there is a very large community of people that could be able to help build bots. And if we look at this, we also saw a lot of interesting space in this where if we talk about like examples of where we're starting to see this, you start seeing industry vertical solutions where you have like travel and transportation and things like this, or retail or healthcare type of implementations. But we also saw departmental approaches. But as we saw these all across the board, what became very evident as we started looking at this is that we really needed to be able to support this concept of fusion development. And fusion development is where you have different people playing different roles within the bot building experience. And when they do this, we need to allow them to collaborate and play that role. And when we talk about this, it's not necessarily that these are non-technical or technical people. It's actually, think of it more so that there are people who are experts in conversational structure and how you do that. You have an expert who understands the natural language understanding component of it and is responsible for that piece of the bot. You have someone who's responsible in marketing that might be responsible for just the copy. What are the words that need to be on the screen? But all of these people have to collaborate together to build a truly engaging bot and be able to do it in a manageable way where it doesn't get stale. And so we really said, how do we go back and how do we really focus in on being able to do this? And we basically came up with a basic bot building cycle. And that bot building cycle that we went after looks a lot like this, where we wanted to give somebody a simple graphical interface. We wanted to get them getting started topics. We wanted them to get like information and just get raw information in. Then we had we don't want you to have to be a natural language understanding expert, but we want to make it where you get the power of natural language understanding as part of this, and allow you to play with entities and things like this. But as we move around, we said, well, bots really needed to be able to plug in to APIs to really make them useful, like to tie it to a backend system. A simple bot that all it does is hi, hello is not very helpful to people, and stagnant content is not really what you're looking for. You really want to tie it to some backend systems. So we took the value of Power Automate and all of the different connectors that are available for that, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. And we made it so that, okay, now we can tie this in and kick off business process automation, but we can also call backend systems and get data from backend systems and bring in as part of that. Then once you have that information, you've got all that, you need to be able to not just be stuck to low code authoring type of scenarios. We actually need to be able to make it where you can take the power of that SDK, that bot framework, and really expand on it to do really more interesting, more complex things if you need to do that. Now, we don't want to make that the key part, but it is the part that we wanted to be able to bring, is to add that complexity where you wanted. Then you have to be able to plug this into the channels. So if you want to talk to someone, customers expect these days to be able to talk to you through any channel that they prefer. And so being able to have a multi-channel aware system, and when we talk about a channel, what is a channel? Channel is Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Teams, web chat, telephone. These are all channels that people interact with these backend components, and we need to be able to bring that solution to whichever channels of your choice. And then lastly, which is not, and definitely not the least important, you need to be able to get reporting and data out of this system so that you can improve it and understand what's going on. Where are you making progress? Where are you not making progress? So we kind of combined that in conjunction, and we moved really kind of focused in on the right way to go about this in our eyes was to focus in, instead of paths-based bot building, and what I mean by that is building bots on Azure with an SDK and having all these little disparate services, and you have to, am I going to use web apps, or am I going to use Azure Functions, or what state storage do you want to use, and all of this. This is way overly complex. So we knew on the feedback we were getting from Gartner and IDC that, and including our MVPs and all of our partners and customers, it was very clear they wanted this to be simpler, but they also had higher expectations. And so in order to do that, you'll see the entire market across the board has moved to SaaS as the actual way to build bots. So if you look at our competitors in Amazon and Google, for example, they don't even offer a PaaS solution anymore, or have ever offered one, to be honest. So where we sit on this is we are saying, you know what, we're going to double down on this. So all our future investments are really focused on Power Virtual Agents, which is our SaaS-based product, which is built on top of Bot Framework. And what that really brings inside that SaaS solution that people were expecting is the ability to have some integrated AI. So if you want to have what we refer to as disambiguation, not familiar with this term, it's you said something, I'm not sure if you really meant to talk to me about, topic A or topic B, because the way you said it, maybe it wasn't so clear. And so instead of just guessing at it, automatically be able to say, hey, these things are pretty close to what you just said. Which one of these makes sense? So we call that the Did You Mean service. But it's an example of some integrated AI that we have, as well as things like when you're authoring and being able to tell you, hey, these two things are very similar in the way that you've trained it. So you might want to think about how you clean that up so that people don't always hit did you mean or disambiguation. So a lot of things like that are just examples. Dashboards and reporting are something that people expect out of the box. They don't expect to have to build a custom solution, so it's there. Fusion Teams, you have to have a SaaS service where you can actually have that collaborative experience and allow sharing and things like that of bots and such. So a lot of interesting things there. And an example is within the Fusion Teams of an example of capability that we've recently shipped was the ability to have a commenting system. So many of you have worked on a PowerPoint presentation or a Word document, and you can go into the comments and call out someone and ask them to come help out. This is a capability that's actually in the product today, that you can go and collaborate with someone and build together, so that the developer can talk to the person who's the content creator, and they can talk to the person who's the dialogue designer, and they can all work together on the same bot in the same development environment as well, if you wish. So then having to do all these upgrades is a big problem for people. So we're making sure that we bring that where you don't have to worry about, did we upgrade a runtime and bot framework, and what is the impact to your project? We also, developer environments, being able to easily provision those out of a box to make it where you can have multiple copies. You don't have to then figure out what are all the Azure services, and does every individual developer need all of these services, things like that. And then scaling and disaster recovery. In the PaaS world, you're just buying storage and compute, and you have to decide how you're going to scale that storage and compute and how you're going to handle that. In the SaaS world, we're actually seeing that we can do this for you. We can handle the scale, we can handle geo dispersion for you. You don't need to worry about all of that, right? And what we saw is, while you kind of look at it and you say, okay, well, the SaaS service is a different beast. It's kind of like comparing a copy of Exchange Server to Office 365. They are not the same thing. So yes, a SaaS service typically will cost more, but upfront, but what you'll find is that the implementation cost and the time to market and everything, we're actually seeing a 261% ROI for our customers. And we're also seeing the time that it takes to build a bot down to 80% less time. And so just to give you perspective, we had a customer who never even used bots this past year. We were able to, it would have taken them a year and 6 months to be able to build this on top of bot framework. We were able to take that customer into a very advanced bot and have it up and in production in 4 months. And so that is just something that would never have happened before. So these are things that we were really focused on, and why we're kind of making the move toward that. Now, if you're not familiar with Power Virtual Agents and what we have, we basically have this environment that allows you to build faster and easier. So you have like a getting started easy. We have the democratization of AI. You've got all the number here saying 450. I think it's actually over 700 now of pre-built connectors. You've got all these channels, and you have this low code authoring canvas. But we also have in market the ability to do the advanced editing using something called the Bot Framework Composer. So think of it that we have a low code, no code authoring canvas that's targeted at a certain audience. And then we had a advanced developer experience that you used to use to build Bot Framework PaaS bots, but we made that advanced authoring canvas available to author dialogues on top of the SaaS service as well. So being able to have both of those working together simultaneously is a really powerful way of being able to do things. However, what we realized is we needed to talk, be better about this. So let's start talking about what's coming. So what do we see happening, and where is Microsoft going to be making their investments? And if many of you may have, you may have went to and watched some of the build announcements, and we'll talk about this a little bit today. And that's what I want to go over with you, is what are we actually going after here? Well, again, we had this low code authoring canvas and Power Virtual Agents, and we had this this tool that we used for Bot Framework Composer, which was targeted at advanced developers. And a lot of customers were like, I really hate that I have to jump from one canvas to the other canvas depending on what I'm trying to write in my bot. And then what happens if I want to add complexity over time and all those type of things. So we were proud to announce at Build that we released a technical preview that actually took the low code and pro code authoring canvases, and we made the new version of both of them by combining them in this new from the ground up authoring canvas. And this new unified authoring canvas has the ability to bring all the power and everything that you could do inside of the advanced authoring canvas, but it retained a lot of the capabilities on making it easy and allowing you to do this without having to know a ton of code and things like that. So if you want to use code, you would be able to. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. The other key things that we were focused on was not just collaborative bot development, but we also talked a lot about and are releasing things around speech and telephony bots. We also are making investments in SaaS, in our SaaS platform with enterprise governance and compliance and such. So let's go into some details. So when we look at this and we talk about this new authoring canvas, again, we're keeping it easy like it was before and taking all the best of each of these different authoring canvases, but we're keeping it intuitive and we're making sure that we move that forward in a very effective way. We also started adding additional node capabilities for topics. And what a node is basically a piece of the conversation. So if you're looking at the boxes that are in the picture here, it's adding all these different components of being able to manage a conversation or do certain actions like an if statement and things like that. And they provide it like a visual component. We get asked a lot of times, can you please bring cut, copy, and paste? Absolutely, we brought that to this canvas so that you can do that. Multi-node selection and is the ability to select multiple things and like delete them. So being able to do things like that will help with that authoring canvas to take it to that next level of productivity. And then when we talk about the topic navigation, if you've got a bot with like 40 different topics or 100, maybe 300 topics, being able to quickly search and jump between them without having to navigate out and click to the topic screen and then go to the next topic and then jump back and forth. Now in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see that we are making it where not only can you quickly jump to other topics, but you can also search for them and be able to get there. So these are really big enhancements that we were looking for. But we didn't just stop there. What we also went after is the ability to have it where you can open the bot directly in a code editor. And so we're exposing the YAML directly to someone who wants to write in code. And when they drop that code in, it converts it over into the visual here that is allowing you to see this as nodes or see it as code. And so by doing this, what we've done is allow the developer who wants to work in code, work in code. The person who wants to work in the visual canvas can work in the visual canvas, and you get the benefits of both. And so this is really powerful, and it even goes as far as like you could copy and paste the entire YAML into another new topic, and you basically have duplicated it, right? So you have the ability to really get into this and do some more advanced things. Now, other things that we announced is the ability, this was like one of our #1 requests, is that in the PBA canvas, you could do this inside of Composer, but it wasn't really straightforward. It wasn't as easy to do, but we have brought rich responses in. So you can embed videos, you can embed adaptive cards, images, dynamic responses, and quick replies are basically, if you are familiar with Bot Framework World, this is also called suggested actions, which is that you have the little, on a per turn of a conversation, having those things that help people know what are things that they can say that they can just quickly click on and it just puts the reply in. So let's talk about adaptive cards a little more. Adding adaptive cards is easy as just hitting add. You can go in, you can go over to the adaptive cards authoring canvas. You grab your JSON, you just drop it in, and voila, you even have a visual representation of that card in the authoring canvas. So that's an amazing opportunity there for us to be able to bring that forward. Now, other thing that we offered is we used to have adaptive expressions, which is the language that you would use to write like formulas and logic within your bot. Now we're bringing the power of PowerFX, including the ability to have IntelliSense, so that you can go and build really complex formulas and be able to manage variables in a much more effective way within this environment. It's incredibly better than what you've seen in the past. So also, event-driven and contextual triggering. This is going to be really awesome because when you think about it, and I'm visiting from a web page or things like this, and I want to be able to bring context into the initiation of a bot, so that way you can understand or have it where there's an event that triggers something within the bot. These are things you could do in the past, but they were more complex to do. So now what we're doing is we're simplifying that down, bringing it to that single canvas, and it allows you to take advantage of that and move forward. Now, we can't go too far without bringing up speech. And speech is a really big thing that we're going to see happening as people are continuing to really start making investments and being able to have multimodal type of bots, where you need to be able to have a speech-enabled bot and a visual or a typing type web chat. With what we added in, you can actually do the multimodal authoring, which will allow you to say, here is the speech track that is separate from the actual visual track. So that allows you to be able to make those changes and actually author multimodal bots in a very effective way, and without having to like duplicate your code or make a dedicated speech bot versus a dedicated text bot. And this even includes embedded, easy to use SSML support. This is so you can do things like put pauses in and make it more customize the way that the language generation or the TTS, which is the text to speech, is actually generated properly for you. So it's pretty cool and effective. Now, why are we really focused in on adding these capabilities and adding that speech component? There's a reason that this is so important for us to make sure that this is here for you. And the reason is because we're also bringing the ability to connect ACS. So we're making it where it's as easy for you to go out and take a ACS telephone number and link it to your bot. And now you actually have the ability to build a solution that is over the telephone, including things like DTMF and such. And if DTMF is like dial tone, when you want to press 1 for this, press 2 for that. So imagine now you have the ability to have one conversational engine. It's working with all these different channels. It's speech enabled, it's voice enabled, it's on web chat, it's got visual cards, and all of that under the control. And you have one central solution that is actually doing all of this and experience for people. Know that with telephony, we are working on bringing all this stuff that we announced in technical preview. We're working to bring pretty much most of that in the authoring space toward the end of this year. Is where we're headed with that one for general availability. However, telephony will probably push off into probably the first quarter of next year. And the rationale behind this is we've got a lot of things that we need to get done to be able to make sure that we have what we refer to as an MVP, or a minimal viable product for the market. And so what you'll see us do is make sure that we bring these additional features in that we think are super critical in order for us to really be able to address the market. So know that these features are coming, and they will be there as part of what we're looking to launch as our GA release of the product. Oh, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump past this because I can't really play videos for you guys. What I will also do is give you perspective on what we're doing around data loss prevention. So we are actually making it where we can bring DLP governance into our bot building experience. This is part of really the governance components that you'll see us really start investing in, that will make it, now that you can author really well, we're really going to be looking at how can we help in the governance, compliance, and things of this nature. We already have most of the industry certifications that are needed. We have governmental cloud support and all of those things. But when you start looking at manageability and how does an IT admin be able to control things of that nature, those are going to be really big investments that we're going to be going after. And the first here is going to be the data loss prevention piece. We also are bringing in, if you're familiar with building teams with Power Virtual Agents, we're also bringing to market the ability to configure policies to automate the deletion of stale environments and things of that nature, so that there's a process of deprecation that they go through in an automated fashion. So this is one of the things that we were asked for a lot from our teams, bot builders. We also are adding the ability for customer lockbox. Customer lockbox is this concept where you need to call support, and your support needs to be able to get access to the data, but you don't want to just give them access to your data. You want to be able to give them, controlled access or timed out. And so this allows our support staff to be able to be provisioned access into your data, because as Microsoft, we never have access to your data, that your data is your own. And the only way we can get that access is for something like a customer lockbox, where you go through a process to say, I actually want to give you access for a supportability standpoint, and then you can also deny it as well. So with that, this is kind of where we're headed in general. What I will tell you is that from a roadmap perspective, where do we really think we're going to be focused? You'll see us continue to make focus in better together integrations. You'll see us focus on development as a team sport and being able to bring more and more in that space. On the enterprise trust side, you'll continue to see us invest in that space and really bring more and more to the market in that space. And then on the world-class conversation and designer and AI, again, we kind of talked about some of the things that we're doing there, but we're going to continue going after this space and really driving forward. Now, with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide these links to you really quick, because I think these are interesting places for you to go. And I'm going to call out a few of these. So if you haven't played with PVA, you can actually go try it for free. This would be our GA version. What we can do is, I think Gary can tell us the aka.ms link for if you want to try PVA, the technical preview. I'm not sure if we're still accepting applications for people to do that, but know that we're headed toward a public preview. So definitely stay tuned. Well, how do you know that and keep up with us? Well, we have on our we have a blog that I would recommend that you get a hold of. You'll see the blog link is available. So if you would like to kind of keep up with us, definitely keep up on our blog. We also have a community, and if you are involved and you're like, hey, this is really a really cool feature if you guys would do this, or what features are we thinking about, then if you go to that PVA feature request link at the very bottom, you'll actually get a portal where you can go and vote on or give us feedback on how critical is this thing for you. Or are there things in this list that you want? Or you can also see what we've got, what we're thinking about, or what's under consideration. You can see what's in plan. You can see what's in progress, and even recently launched features. And then in the upper right-hand corner of that website, you can even suggest one if it doesn't exist there. Those features are reviewed by myself and the team every single week, and that reports on what you guys are looking for go all the way to our corporate vice president level every month, that they get a report on that, so that we make sure that we're driving toward and making sure that we're getting the features that you guys want to see in the product. So with that, I'm going to move into the Q&A time, and just thank you for your time today. However, let's look at the questions we have. So Gary, do you want to come off mute and let's talk about some of the questions you have? If you want to submit questions, I see that there's 2 in the queue right now. Feel free to continue to add questions to this. Gary and I are going to make sure that we go through as much of this as we can with you guys. So let's
absolutely.
Take the first one, Gary.
Fantastic. Yeah, great to see everybody, and hopefully that was a useful introduction. I think one thing to call out, as Dwayne said, we did have some videos which would have walked you through actually seeing the product working, which we weren't able to show today. So I would definitely encourage you to follow those links. As a quick follow-up to the previous call to actions, and Dwayne, maybe you want to leave the calls to actions on the screen while we're doing the Q&A anyway. So maybe just hop back to the previous slide, so folks have got those, can make a note of those links. But we're not taking new applicants right now for the technology preview, but as Dwayne said, we are going to be moving into public preview and general availability later this year. So keep your eyes open and stay tuned, and please, check out the links that are here. So on to the questions. Our first question, which we have, which is not quite sure exactly what this is referring to, but it says, does it work backwards? Can you upload code into it? So I'm thinking this might actually be a reference to the code editor that you talked about before, Dwayne.
Yes, they're specifically saying, can they just take existing bot framework code and drop it into the YAML? So Gary, I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, so I guess there's a couple of answers. It's a little bit nuanced. So you can absolutely share YAML between Power Virtual Agents bots. So it's not just a case of sort of copying the YAML out of a PVA bot to put it in. You will not see a 100% like for like between a bot framework bot framework composer bot and a Power Virtual Agents bot in terms of the YAML. The main reason being that we've obviously made some significant updates to the canvas, and therefore there just is not a one-to-one mapping. However, having said that, there are a lot of similarities. So it's absolutely possible that you could take the YAML that you have in Bot Framework Composer today as a basis for moving over to Power Virtual Agent so that you don't have to redo absolutely everything. Some names may have changed, but again, I'm sure you can work around that. It is possible in the future, although it's not planned at the moment. It's conceivable that we would have some form of a tool which made this job a little bit easier. But as I say, that's not in plan at the moment. So if you wanted to do any sort of conversion between a Composer bot YAML and the PVA bot YAML, you'd need to undertake that yourself today.
Yeah, and so I would add into this, existing bot framework bots can be converted into what's called a skill, where you basically make a manifest file in a JSON file, basically, that exposes that service so that you can do like a parent-child relationship where you have the Power Virtual Agent bot that hands off to a legacy bot framework bot. So if you're looking at how can you get that together into a single bot experience, you can absolutely do that. Now, you won't have telemetry aligned and you'll have two different DevOps models. So over time, it would make sense. And we are working with our partner channel to get like packaged offerings up so that customers who say, hey, this dialogue, I just don't want to host this on Azure anymore. I need help to quickly be able to convert it. It's not really complicated to convert those things, but also to Gary's point, we really changed the way that that you call APIs and things. So it's a little bit different component model as well, which means that some of the concepts translate into you just do it a little bit different way. So it's one of those where with custom code, it's really just complicated to try to just move it over and bring it right over.
Yeah, I think that also answers one of the later questions that we have. So we might as well just tackle that now, which is what is the process of moving it from the SDK code to PVA? So I would just say, absolutely explore the skills protocol that Dwayne was talking about. We've got some great docs out there and tutorials on how to turn your bot into a skill. I would say that there's obviously going to be no straightforward way to convert a code-based bot into Power Virtual Agents. However, you will find that depending on the level of sort of bespoke code that you've added, if you are generally relying on, for example, a waterfall dialog to build your bot, then you will be able to spot similar concepts between the two. And so actually taking your conversation design and rebuilding that within a visual designer shouldn't be too difficult. It really then starts to get to the point of what third-party services are you integrating with, how much data processing are you doing? And really that's where you need to start to look at, okay, well, some of that work you might need to offload to something like Power Automate. We will have the ability to take existing Power Virtual Agents bots that use Composer. I should also call that out. If you are using Composer within the Power Virtual Agents context today, there will be a plan for bringing over those existing bots to the new unified canvas. Anyway, I just wanted to just call that out because it was a related question. Let's move on to the next one, which is it possible for the adaptive card to get a response from a REST API endpoint? Dwayne, do you want me to take that one?
Yes. So with the REST API side, this goes back to there's a couple of different ways, right? So when we look at this, we're really trying to componentize bot building in a way where you can get reusable assets. So the simple answer to your question is being able to, can you in Power Virtual Agents make a direct API request in your code? Today using Composer, that is something that you can absolutely do. However, when doing that, you have not put your code into a reusable asset as it would be if you built a Power Automate custom connector. And when I say this, I'm assuming that the API is not already available and inside of the Power Automate connector library, which if you haven't seen this, again, there's over 700 of these and the community is growing massively on this. And not only are you building a reusable asset for Power Virtual Agents, but you're building it for Power Automate and the whole Power Platform. So expect that really what we want is to separate that connection logic and that data acquisition logic into a Power Automate or a Power Platform connector. And that will allow you to be able to make that reusable over and over and over within your code. And so again, that's the way that we intend it to be done. And I know that Gary and I are, Gary is looking at the ability to even be able to call a connector directly in the future. We would like to get to that point. It's not something that's in the unified authoring canvas today. But then I guess, Gary, I'll throw it to you as the owner of the new authoring canvas. Will you still be able to do an HTTP call if you so chose to do so directly from PVA or an API endpoint?
So yes, so the good news is that we will be retaining that capability, both for bots that use it today, that need to be brought forward to the unified campus, but we will also retain the capability for you. And obviously, it's then down to you to make the right choice between using Power Automate versus calling the API directly. In some cases, calling the API directly could be the right choice, but I think we, for all the reasons that Dwayne just went through, like Power Automate is a fantastic option for sort of separating concerns. The other thing I would say is that some things that you won't have seen in our announcements so far, or indeed in the technology preview, are some additional capabilities that we will add to the canvas through public preview GA, which are the ability for you to pass a JSON response. So those of you who are familiar with Power Automate may already be familiar with a feature like this, but you'll be able to take a JSON string, maybe one that's been returned from Power Automate, actually, and then pass that into a record or what more commonly known as an object variable, which means you can then interact with that data on your canvas. This is a huge gap for us today, and it's one that we are solving as part of this unified campus. You can then do things, for example, like get some JSON back from Power Automate or the HTTP call directly, convert that into a, let's say, a list variable, which is a list of strings. You can then take that variable, pass it into a question node prompt, and have that dynamically power your multiple choice options. So there is still even more scenarios that we are unlocking over the course of the coming months that we think will dramatically, improve the range of bots that you can build with PVA today. Great. Right. So
Gary, I see a question here that says the ballpark pricing of PVA.
Yep.
So what I figure I will do is I'll just show you where to go get this information. And then the easiest way to do that is that you just go to powervirtualagents.microsoft.com, and then on the pricing page here, you'll actually see the pricing side. The key thing when you go into pricing, especially if you're a bot framework person, you need to understand the concept of a session. And bot framework is built all around storage, compute, and messages, right? And you have to come up with all the different components and how much and what size you're going to do. It's really hard to price a bot in bot framework. In PVA, it's all about sessions, right? And a session, let me give you the definition of a session. If you are familiar, a unique conversation for a unique user. So when you look at that, a unique conversation ID for those that know bot framework, right? So you have a unique conversation up to 100 turns or 60 minutes in duration of the conversation, whichever comes first. So you could have a conversation that was 10 minutes with 100 turns, and when 101, you're in session number 2. You could have a new user connect to the system. It's a brand new user, and when they connect to it for the, and they haven't, or they reconnect after an hour, it's a unique conversation. And so therefore, that is the definition of a session. And then you will see that we basically sell them in session packs. So you have an initial environment setup cost that includes, I think, 2,000 sessions up front. And then you have session packs that you add. Now, again, these are MSRP. Actually, this is I guess there's like a special going on for the pricing. So that's what this is. It does include the Power Automate licenses that are needed for you to be able to do what you need in PVA. So you get all the premium connectors and everything with the purchase of the sessions. You don't have seats, and it's all about the users using your bot is the way that it's handled. So it's all usage driven. So hopefully that's, so if you wanted to stand up the very first one and you didn't have over 2,000 sessions, it's about $200 MSRP. Okay, so Gary, I think we have this next one. Do you have samples like calendar skill or email skill, just like the SDK yet? I can either take that one or you can, Gary, it's up to you.
I mean, you go for it. Yeah, please, okay. And I can always add to it.
So where we're at right now is we do not have those type of implementations yet. We are in the process of updating the authoring canvas as it sits, and so we wanted to make sure that when we built these type of initial, what we would call templates or starters, our intention is to produce them. We will produce them and make them available in AppSource, and we are also evaluating whether we will bring them into the service itself. I would encourage you that if there is a template or a starting point that you would really like to see, please go out to the link for the feature request. It's the bottom one on this, and put it in that you would like to have that. We actually have a team of engineers that are dedicated to building samples and things of this nature. Right now, they're building a lot of samples on DevOps and how to be able to do DevOps. We've got samples on how to be able to use machine translation in front of your bot so that you can author it in one language and then have it translated to whatever language you want, so you don't have to do the translation yourself. Things like this, we have samples for, but the specific content samples, we really needed to be able to do something with that. And then there's also a feature request that's in the system for topic level import and export. That's one of the things that we think is sort of the major thing that would help, because we know that some people, they don't just want the whole bot. Like right now, we could make you a whole bot sample that you could import as a starting point. But we really think what's probably more valuable is to get to a point where we can just allow you, hey, here's a weather topic with the Power Automate connector and everything together, and allow you to export it and import it in. So if that's something that's really important to you, I would definitely say go out and to the feature request site. You'll see that import export, topic level import export. You should definitely vote on that feature, because that's probably the thing that's going to really turn that over to where we start doing that. And I don't know, Gary, did you have anything additional you would add to that?
No, I think you covered that really well.
Okay, awesome.
So moving on to the next one. This is also pricing related. It says about pricing related to the conversation ID being unique. How would Microsoft Teams be priced as the conversation ID remains the same?
Excellent question.
Yeah.
I can answer this one.
Great.
So number one is there is a free version for Teams. So and the free version for Teams just doesn't come with the premium connectors for Power Automate. There's some limits on how many API calls you can make through Power Automate and things like that. So just know there's some limiters on that free SKU. And then the answer to your question is that you're correct. When you have a session that is, you have a channel, shall I say, that is persistent, just like Teams. But if you look at it, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, all of these are what I would refer to as persistent channels. They keep the same conversation ID. They're not unique every time. Whereas like if you visit a web page and it's just an FAQ bot and you ask some questions and then you go to the next thing, you definitely want to look at your conversation ID even in that space, because you probably don't want it every time we refresh the page that you initiate a new conversation ID. I mean, we appreciate you doing that and running up the bill, but that's not what we want you to do. We want you to design it properly, right? So our goal would be that you look at that and you're aware of that conversation ID. So in that case that you have a persistent one, or you've designed one to be persistent for some reason, then the result is that you're really looking at up to 100 turns within 60 minutes. So every hour that, and so don't confuse that we're talking about that the session is not like it's open. It's that the conversations are happening in this time frame. So if someone comes in and they ask 16 questions or 16 turns worth of information, and then they stop, and then they do 16 more in 20 minutes, that's still going to be one session. Then let's say that they wait a week and then they come back and they do it again. You will get a new session when you initiate a new conversation or initiate the conversation again. So it's not how long is the session open or the conversation ID open, it's activity within and the duration of time from the activity initiation to when you stop having a conversation. And there's actually something called a session timeout, just so you know. So the sessions time out on the back end, but whenever a persistent channel connects, it just reconnects to that same conversation ID and reopens the session. So that gives you kind of perspective on how that works on the back end. All right. Are there APIs to connect to other than apps such as Salesforce? I'll take this one as well, Gary.
Yeah, so, I know what I know. We would answer it the same way. So go ahead.
Yes. So Power Automate has an out-of-the-box as part of the premium connectors, the ability to call Salesforce, call ServiceNow. Heck, I even was working on something. I was like shocked. There was like one for like PagerDuty. So there's tons and tons of connectors that are available from the community, and you can build your own and you can contribute it to the community, or you can make your own and it be your own independent connector for your own like back-end custom system. All right. So
and that is it at the moment. So I would encourage folks to, if there's any last minute questions, let's, oh, yeah, we have one. What type of performance stats are available?
Okay. Gary, I've been talking a lot. Do you know this one?
Well, I can certainly give you a high-level answer, and then if you've got anything to add, Dwayne, then you can feel free to. So what you are going to be able to do with Power Virtual Agents is, I guess there's a few different pieces to that answer. The first thing is we have analytics built into the dashboard within the SaaS service. So those analytics are going to provide you usage, key metrics around usage in terms of the number of conversations, the number of sessions, the length of those sessions, and then you can actually drill down into that information. So there's plenty of information there. We also provide you with transcripts that you can gain access to. So those transcripts could then be analyzed to, let's say, indicate, okay, how long did, on average, were turns taking, for example, with the bot. But then you can also take your Power Virtual Agents bot and plug it into Azure Application Insights. Now, this isn't going to give you performance stats at the runtime level, because that's part of our SaaS service. It's not something that you manage, but it will give you a whole bunch of telemetry that's being sent out from the bot, that where you can start to actually infer things like how long were your Power Automate calls taking, for example. How long is are users taking to answer a particular question within a given topic. So there's a few different options for you right now. We'll also be adding more options as we move into the new unified canvas, but we have nothing specific to announce today. And look, Dwayne, it looks like you're going to add something.
Yeah, so I just brought up this is a test bot. It doesn't have any traffic on it recently, but to give you an idea, in the analytics tab, you have a summary. You've got things around topic triggering, customer satisfaction, because we have built-in components for getting feedback, so you can get an idea of how satisfied the customers are. We talked about sessions. There's a section for sessions, and there's also one for billing. All of these, we are seeking feedback from our community and our customers on what we can do to improve in this space. But you'll see things like total sessions, engagement rate, resolution rate, all of these things. So just be aware that those things are out of the box. The other thing is there is a GitHub repository that we have that we can share with you guys if you need to get in touch with us. You can go out to our community link that I shared before, and definitely post something on that community link, and we can make sure that you get what you're looking for. So be aware, and here I'll pull it up. So just here you go, here's the community. So I would recommend just go out there and ask for what you're looking at. And what we have is we have a GitHub repository that gives you an extended data pipeline capability where you can export the telemetry out and put it into your own extended data pipeline. And the reason you would do that is if you want to do custom reporting, or you wanted to build like a self-improvement loop or machine translation, or machine learning opportunity for you, so that you could go in and say, okay, well, I want to learn from something I've done in the back end. Now we do already have the ability, and we have part of one of the things that we offer is that we do look through the telemetry and give you recommendations of things that people are saying to the bot that you might want to address, the common things that are showing up in your telemetry to help you look at the white space on your bot. But again, those are just kind of out of the box things that you have, but there's the ability to get really powerful with it.
And I'm going to take the last question, Dwayne,
Sure.
really quickly, because then I think we need to wrap up because we're pretty much at time. But the last question is, will there be a bot builder community for PVA for things like Google, WhatsApp, etc.? And this is from Ashwara, and I recognize the name, I think, from the bot builder community on GitHub, which, for context, for those of you who don't know, I started the bot builder community before I joined Microsoft, and so it's something that we've built up over time as extensions for Bot Framework Composer and the Bot Framework SDK. I think the honest answer is it really depends on the community. So I think we would love to see that community and that GitHub project remain active. It's still active today and maintained for. We did a release just last week with some updates to the Google adapter and some other fixes. We would love to see things for PVA, and I think that now that you're starting to get things like the code editor within Power Virtual Agents, where we can share YAML between bots, now that we have, because we're built on Power Platform, we have the ability to solutionize bots. And then there are other ways of extending PVA bots as well, right? These bots have the direct line API as well. So we've seen customers who build essentially an adapter as like an Azure function, for example, and sit that in front of a Power Virtual Agents bot, which then communicates over direct line with the bot, rather than having it embedded in the runtime. So we would love to see that community continue to thrive, and certainly we would support that in the way that we continue to do so today. So that's I'll leave that there, and Dwayne, just really back over to you just to wrap up. We have 1 minute, I think.
Yeah, and I would just add, know that there is some community in the community forums as well, and then we do offer a repository called AppSource that you can use to collaborate on as well. But I definitely agree with Gary. We really want to see what we can do in that space to engage the community more. So with that, I would like to say thank you for attending today. Hopefully we found this very helpful. And again, feel free to jump in and really get engaged in this. Know that we're really excited about all the progress we've been making in this space. We feel like this is really the future of where bot building is going. And again, thank you so much for your time today, and have a wonderful rest of your virtual conference. Thank you.